Détruire tout, c'est une obligation. Détruire tout, c'est une obligation.
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? I am Silentkaster, and we are here today with yet another week. Another week of fun. Oh man, it just feels like the days are going by so fast now, doesn't it? Like it's just the thing about it right now is, you know, whenever you have election season, especially, and we're going to get into this in a little bit, but when you have election season, it's like everything just goes so fast because everything is, I want to say, like, diverted into, like, a discussion about the election. Like, it's kind of on the back of everybody's mind. And we're going to get into the statistics today because it's been a little while since we've done that. So I want to kind of get into, you know, where the candidates are in the Republican primary. Also get into the Democrat. I mean, it's not really a primary. I can't call it that, but we'll call it that for the sake of simplicity. We'll call it the Democrat primary. And then also, we've got some other stuff to talk about today. But I think this is a good place to start because it's just kind of a topic that's probably, you know, good to at least keep your eye on and see who your potential choices are. Also, I'm going to let you all know, I do have a storm. I'm in Florida, as most of you know. For those of you that don't, now you know. And sounds like there's a storm coming, and we've been having some pretty bad ones. We get some bad ones in the summer, so if internet goes out or something happens, you know, I obviously want to let y'all know that now before I start, so that way you're not too concerned in case the show suddenly drops. But anyway, let's get into this. So let's just take a look at this week's polls. So what we've got is you know, Rasmussen, which is like a daily poll. It has Biden sitting at 54 disapproval. We'll talk a little bit more about this in depth in a little bit, but basically, you know, he's been underwater for a long time, and it seems like his disapproval is kind of hardened because he's been at that, you know, high water level. Now, this is only partially relevant because I think that a lot of people are looking at the Republican Party right now, especially with, you know, you've got bombastic Trump again, which, you know, is not a very good candidate, you know, especially, you know, it kind of reminds you, like, if anybody remembers 2016, like the choices we've got this election cycle closely resemble that. So you've got like a hardened Trump base, and then you've got a hardened anti-Trump base. And most of the people in the middle are like, I don't really want to vote for either of these candidates, right? Like I don't like Biden, and I don't like Trump. But the advantage that Biden has in, you know, that a lot of people don't talk about, because it's not like it's not a like hardened disadvantage. It's not a disadvantage, or excuse me, an advantage that a lot of people can put into material. But a lot of people probably would not realize is that Trump has a polarizing effect, whereas Biden has a, you know, it's like a kind of a softer effect. So if you don't like Trump, you really don't like Trump, right? And so that will drive you to maybe go vote for Biden, even in the case that you don't want Biden to be, you know, the president. You're like, I really don't like Biden, but I hate Trump, so I'm going to go vote for Biden. You know, and Trump has those constituents that would, you know, cross a minefield to vote for him. Okay. And that's all well and good. The problem is when you're an independent sitting in the middle and you don't really like either, Biden has the advantage of, you know, default, which is I really don't like Trump. I really don't like Biden, but, you know, I'm kind of tired of the media circus around Trump. I'm tired of the, you know, just the constant polarization of, you know, everybody hating Trump. And so I'm just going to go vote for Biden, because you're going to vote for somebody. So you kind of just vote, you know, in that case for Biden and say, you know, I mean, you know, the inflation is crazy, and, you know, Biden doesn't know his own name sometimes, but that's not as bad as, you know, somebody constantly going on social media and, you know, berating everybody, including former allies, and, you know, all this other stuff. And I'm just tired. I'm just tired of it. So I'm going to vote for Trump, which is why I think that Ron DeSantis is hammering the electability argument so much, because, you know, a lot of people actually really like DeSantis, and he probably thinks he can get a lot of those voters that are disenfranchised by Biden to come and vote for him. That's why he's really laying that up and trying to run on that. That's one of his major platforms. But, you know, at the same time, you also need those Trump voters to come to your side. And a lot of Trump voters are skeptical of Ron DeSantis. I'm not saying they don't have good reason. I'm also skeptical and, you know, believe that he's a, you know, he's going to be, you know, in Florida, it's a little bit different, the way that he ran everything, because in Florida, he basically had a layup as far as an election went for his second time. And, you know, in the first period, he had the Trump, you know, Trump kind of took him over the finish line, you know, dragged him over the finish line. I mean, he only won by like 0.5%. And then in the, you know, and Florida was always a kind of slightly lean red state, but, you know, he had the advantage of really, you know, just one state kind of being controlled. But now he has, you know, he has to govern on a national level, assuming that he would be the candidate. Taking a break real quick. I never trust polls. Bush and Clinton both had ugly disapproval rates. Of course. I mean, you know, I think Clinton actually had a decent approval rate compared to Bush. Bush always had a very slumped approval rating. And should you trust polls? No, because the thing is that the polls haven't really changed with the times, I would say. At least not enough to, I think, gauge everything as accurate as they have before. A lot of polls tend to, you know, heavily weight, for instance, like older voters. because older voters are now, or have always historically been, much more likely to vote in an election than, younger voters. But now that they've changed the vote system, where you can do early voting, you can do mail-in voting, you can vote from the graveyard if you're dead. Okay, maybe they didn't do that, but now that they've changed that, more young people are encouraged to vote. Don't have the difficulty of voting as they used to. So, you have to take polls with a grain of salt. You have to realize that they are flawed, and then also, certain polls don't tell you a whole lot. Republicans are probably not going to win the popular vote, even if they win. They haven't done so in quite a long time. And the reason that they haven't done so is because, younger voters, first of all, you've got major population centers that are centered in urban areas, which are often in California, Los Angeles. One of the things about 2016 is if you kind of remove California, Trump actually won the popular vote. But you've got all those urban centers there, which is a important qualification for the popular vote, right? Doesn't matter if you win the popular vote by one, or it doesn't matter if you win the popular vote, but if you win by one vote in a state, or if you win by 2 million votes in a state, for that particular election, and the delegates that you would get as far as the electoral college, it's the same, right? It's the same. So you don't have to win by, any significant margin. You can win by one vote, and the outcome is the same as far as the electoral college goes. So, a lot of people would look at that as flawed. As most of you know, I kind of look at the democratic system as flawed in general, because it just means that the person that walked in behind you with pink hair that was told yesterday that, the other candidate is an evil boogeyman that's going to come and kill them and their parents, is the person that they have the same amount of vote sway as you do, right? So, people that just have no clue what they're, voting for, oftentimes are able to go and vote. I mean, I was just talking with somebody on Reddit, and they said, well, his wife votes Democrat almost every time, and when she talks, she said, the way that she, talks and kind of the policies that she supports are often supported by Republicans, but because her dad's a Democrat, she ends up voting Democrat and just always saying, well, I gotta, I don't want to disappoint my dad. And it's like, that person has just as much voting power as you do. So that's kind of the flaw of democracy, is that, yeah, there's a problem. Let's get to chat real quick, and then we'll actually dive into these polls. Most young people don't know if they are an innie or an outie, just saying. Do you know? That's the real question. Weekly Roundup, these nuts on your face. Oh, got him. That's my stance. What are we talking about? We're talking about polls. Actually, we're going to get into the polls right now. So we'll do that. All right. So what we've got this Rasmussen poll. So you've got, like I said, Biden has this hard and disapproval base. Doesn't mean they're not going to vote for him, though. As I just mentioned, just because he has a 54% disapproval rating does not mean that 54% of those people surveyed like Trump or like anyone on the Republican side, right? California Republican presidential primaries. So Trump is way out in front, 50. There's probably only like 5 Republicans left in California, so you've got 50, and then of course DeSantis, about half of what Trump has, and then all the other candidates. So looking at this poll, what you'd have to analyze is that not only does DeSantis have to break away, and some of this is going to be soft support for Trump. I mean, not everyone is diehard MAGA, but he's going to have to break away some of the soft support from Trump, and then also get pretty much gobble up everybody else's support, because all these people are going to drop out. I mean, I love Ramaswamy. I'd really like to vote for him. You've pretty much got the 3 from Cheney going to DeSantis, probably the 6 from Pence going to DeSantis, but the others like Tim Scott, well, Chris Christie, you probably got the 3% from him going to DeSantis. But like Haley and Scott, they may not necessarily, they may just say, no, I want to, I'll hold my nose and vote for Trump. New Hampshire, it's looking even worse for DeSantis, and New Hampshire is one of the states that DeSantis wants to, topple and really do well in, because it's, I think it's the second. Well, technically it's the first primary, but it goes after Iowa, which is a caucus. So, again, not 50% for Trump here. So DeSantis has a little bit more of a chance here, which is probably why he's investing so many resources into it. But, we've got Trump out at 39, so basically 40, compared to DeSantis at 15. So a lot of ground to make up here, including gobbling up everybody else's support, if he can. Again, another approval, still same disapproval rating at 54. This is pretty much steady. The approval rating goes up and down with Biden, but this disapproval is pretty steady across most polls. Look at this. 54, Harris X, disapproval. 51 versus 38, so the approval's a little lower here, but the disapproval's a little lower as well. So, this has been steady for a long time. And so you got an unpopular president, and again, we're not taking polls at, 100% face value, but we are going to go ahead and say that we can get a story from this, right? We can at least gain the perspective and the story from what it's telling us, and it's telling us that it's telling us that Biden is not popular, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything for Trump. As we can see, general election, 42 versus 42, 43 versus 42. That's a couple polls. This is saying 43 versus 38. I think that you lose some of the Trumpers that are going to say, because you got, maybe about 10% of them that are saying, I'm not voting for DeSantis. I'm only voting for Trump. Trump. So again, DeSantis has some ground to make up if he wants to win. Both in the general and in the regular. He would actually need some Democrats to vote for him, which he could get, but we would have to see. So let's look into the campaign a little bit before we do that. Let's just see any new comments. Why are Polish people so important in politics? Well, there's all kinds of people that we in America, the melting pot. Hey, Infamous, how you doing? And Nick, never watched one of these, but I'm British. Yeah, I know. We talk about British stories once in a while. I would really love it if y'all would put Boris Johnson back into politics. Oh my gosh, I love talking about Boris Johnson. He's amazing. So if you do that, we'll cover more UK stuff. Okay, let's read this article. A long slog inside DeSantis' early struggles and effort to rebound. Ron DeSantis' allies were eager to regain momentum on the eve of his presidential campaign launch in May. Supporters gleefully predicted that the sheer buzz from a splashy announcement, live on Twitter, would rival Donald Trump's 2015 ride down a golden escalator. Fundraisers were upbeat as they convened at the Four Seasons Miami, some convinced Trump's daunting lead would shrink as DeSantis finally got in the race. That hasn't happened. More than 7 weeks in, skepticism about the Florida governor's 2024 bid has grown. Some people who have advised and supported DeSantis have raised private concern about his message and the effectiveness and insularity of his campaign operation, according to people familiar with the comments among the more than 30 people interviewed for this story. Okay. The doubts extend to long-friendly Fox News, where a recent headline asked, will DeSantis sink and fade out? And its owner, the conservative media magnate Rupert Murdoch, according to another person who speaks regularly with Murdoch about the presidential race. He was excited about him at the beginning, but the more he shows himself, the less appealing he is, said this person, who, like others, spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe private deliberations and talk more freely. Murdoch will come back to Trump if he thinks Trump can win, this person added. A representative from Murdoch declined to comment Saturday. Okay. So let's stop there real quick. First of all, the thing about DeSantis' campaign is that he actually entered the race a little bit kind of late and like after his peak, right? So that's the kind of I guess thing you're dealing with here is it was after his peak that he entered the race, because he was within about 10 points of Trump actually at one point. And instead of announcing then, he kind of waited for a legislative session in Florida to be over. And then he took a trip to Jerusalem where he signed a piece of legislation called HB 269, which, you know, a lot of independent people will tell you, you know, like my friend Edgar, they're simply not voting for him. And that is a major piece of it. But also, you know, where he, you know, so he kind of did that, and, you know, instead of doing these things, you know, while he was, you know, after his announcement, he could have ridden the wave if he announced at that time, and probably at least to a degree kept that momentum. But he also vetoed a bill which, you know, is for criminal justice reform. And it's actually something that I disagree with him on, because basically what this bill did was, like, for first-time offenders, it would, you know, expunge their record under certain conditions. So, like, if they're, you know, they got a felony charge for, like, theft or, you know, something like that, where it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like a severe felony, but it was felonious in nature. It would give them a chance to expunge their records. And the problem with, you know, the thing about when you have a felony on your record, it's very difficult to obtain a, you know, kind of a mid-level position in a company, right? Because almost every company does a background check. So you either have to find a small company that doesn't, that's also going to, you know, pay you a decent salary. And, you know, most companies, even smaller ones, aren't going to take that chance because, you know, you don't want to hire someone in a trusting position without doing a background check on them, right? That's just not something that you want to do as a company, you know, for the most part. You know, it depends, you know, if you're hiring someone in a, you know, in a lower level position, you know, that wouldn't pay as much, then sure. But, you know, that is a long slog of having to work your way up through a company. And, you know, it's not only that, but it's also, you know, if you want to get, like, small business loans, you know, if you don't have money and you don't have a clear direction to make it, then it's really hard to build that wealth, right? And a felony is such a severe offense on your record that so many people are not going to hire you just based on that, right? They're not gonna do that. And as I've mentioned many times, as a kid, kids are stupid. And I would even, I've said it, extends up to 18. I would probably extend that even a little further in life. I know I was pretty stupid in my 20s compared to how I was in my 30s. And I might even say that in my 40s about my 30s, assuming that the world lasts that long. But, the thing is that we have to, at least give people a chance. Like, that's not saying that they have to go and, follow this program and expunge the felony from their record. It's not saying that if they have, like, a bunch of felonies on their record that they can get expunged. But at least giving them the opportunity to do so, in my opinion, is much better than just saying to them, no, you can't do that. And so that's something I disagree with DeSantis on. I would prioritize that above HB 269, which is basically a bill about, hate speech. A lot of the stuff in the bill is already illegal. There are a few things that are not, but it just kind of reclassifies it. And, not saying that those laws should exist. I'm just saying that it was not as big of a deal to me as this was, as far as an election goes. Let's take a look here. I was stupid all the way till 25, 28. Yeah, I'm probably still stupid. That's okay. I mean, I say stupid, and I have a whole blog post about why you should take the word stupid out of your vocabulary. But the thing is that in this case, it's appropriate to use because younger people are stupid in the sense that they just don't know as much as, people that have had more experience. You certainly, a lot of people are afraid, for instance, to go to like student doctors. And so if you, like when I lived in Gainesville, you could get dental work done and all this, you could get it done at like deep discounts because you would go to, students who needed, different, they needed experience doing procedures, and so, you charge, compared to other dentists, if you charge next to nothing for a student to do it, well, in that, you're going to have more of a, you're going to get a big discount, but you're also, I guess, run a risk, in many cases, because you're having someone that has virtually no experience working on you, doing some kind of a major procedure on your mouth. So, it's like there's a reason that people will say, I'm not doing that, There's a reason for that, and the reason is because they're stupid. They haven't had as much experience as, somebody who's, been doing dentistry for 10, 20 years, right? They haven't had as much experience. So therefore, they are afraid of, having that done. But it's not nice to say that they're stupid because it sounds like they're saying, that the studying and the work that they put into this education, is all for nothing, or, but it's the point of what I'm trying to say here is that it's true. They are stupid. They're just not, they are stupid because they have a lack of experience, not because they're actually, not knowledgeable. It's just that, about their craft, but they actually may not know, about certain, follow-up questions or have the answers to, why somebody might be experiencing pain, in a different area after a procedure. And so, as a student doctor, they have that, they still have that benefit of, more experienced doctors supervising their work, able to answer patient questions on their behalf, educating them as well as, the patient when the patient has concerns. they have all that benefit. But again, there's a price for that. And that price is that they have to charge less money because they're letting students do that. Now, it could be to your benefit, or you might say, I'm not taking the chance on that. That's your choice, of course, but, all right. So, anyway, this is just kind of talking about DeSantis' campaign. It's just not going as well as, he kind of expected, which, I have trouble believing that he expected his campaign to, just go to, expanding wonderful heights. He's just, again, he's made kind of some tactical errors. He came in after his peak, and so he has a lot of ground to make up, especially because some of those voters, that were excited and enthusiastic for his campaign, that probably initially responded to those polls, saying, they would choose DeSantis, when he was like 30-40 against Trump, right? Well, some of those people, were soft support, and they're going to be harder to obtain than, people that were not as, that maybe hadn't made up their mind yet or were soft support for other candidates, right? Because the thing is that, those people actively chose to, choose either Trump or a different candidate after the fact, So, again, to make up ground on those people would be very difficult. So, yeah, I don't know how well he can do in a campaign. And we'll see. I did want to talk about this, and we can see that Biden, just based on this article. So you read I didn't archive everything today because I was having trouble with the archiver. So we're just kind of grabbing some live articles. So if it starts playing an ad or doing something weird, I'm sorry. I usually try to archive everything so that way that doesn't happen, but we're gonna have all these wonderful live ads, and sometimes it will automatically play video and whatnot. So President Biden is starting his re-election campaign with tens of millions of dollars in the bank, dwarfing second quarter fundraising totals already announced by the campaigns of former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. According to an announcement from the campaign ahead of a federal elections commission reporting deadline this weekend, the Biden-Harris campaign, Democratic National Committee, and their joint fundraising committees combined to raise $72 million from April to the end of June. They have $77 million cash on hand. Oh, you would think, maybe just give it to the country, pay down that national debt. Guess not. Because Biden is the incumbent president and his campaign is fully integrated with the DNC, the combined fundraising total represents all the funds the re-elect could draw upon. Despite higher donation limits this election cycle, these totals are actually lower than the numbers posted by former presidents Barack Obama and Trump at a similar point in their campaigns. Trump and the Republican National Committee raised $105 million in the second quarter of 2019, while Obama and the DNC raised $86 million. Now, that's the key that we want to take from this. That's the key that we want to take. So, NPR is trying to mislead you by saying that President Biden posts blockbuster 3-month fundraising total $72 million. Oh, doesn't that sound amazing? I mean, blockbuster, right? That's just amazing. That's great. I mean, he's outraising DeSantis. He's outraising Trump. He's just going nuts, raising so much money. Well, okay, but first of all, they're not allowed to combine with the RNC because, Trump is not the campaign. Trump or DeSantis is not the candidate, right? They're not the candidate. So they can't draw on those funds. But B, even if they could, and despite things being, despite there being more inflation and the dollar is worth less than it was, Obama and Trump outraised Biden. So money kind of talks. And so, Trump, 105 million, whatever. We all know that Trump is, like, Trump was, constantly fundraising. I actually, what was it, 2019. So, I went to a Trump rally in Ohio back in 2020, right before, all the COVID stuff happened. It was in January, actually. And, so I went to a Trump campaign or a rally event in Ohio, and I remember in order to get like a ticket to the campaign, so you still had to like register to go in, and you had to stand in this like long line, and it was pretty wild. So I think we were there like 3 or 4 hours early, and luckily, or it was in the winter, obviously, and for those of you that haven't been to North Ohio in the winter, it's cold, and it wasn't snowing that day, but it was really windy. So we sat outside, my dad and I, and we were, just luckily it wasn't that cold that day, and I'm from Michigan originally, so I was able to tolerate it. He was fine too, but you had to sit outside, and so but in order to get in, you had to get these tickets, and so you had to sign up for the texting service. And I remember getting texts from the Trump campaign like daily, if not more often than that, like, oh, we need your money, oh, Biden, the evil Democrats are coming to blah blah blah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. Like I just wanted to go to a rally, I just wanted to see how it was, and so the whole thing was very interesting. But with Biden, the thing is that this kind of proves his approval, right? Like, nobody's excited about Biden. Like, even the people that probably generally approve of him, nobody's excited about him. Nobody's like opening their wallets and giving to him. And when I say nobody, I don't mean absolutely nobody. I'm saying, not nearly as many people. Again, we have to remember, like, during Obama's reign, in 15, the economy was pretty decent. People, had, money to spare. And then this total of 86 million is actually, adjusted for inflation, is, Joe Biden has come in 14 million below that, right? With the help of the DNC. So, we have to remember that, NPR kind of buried this paragraph for a reason. Like, they didn't lead with that because they want you to think like everything's fine, Biden's good. They're trying to convey confidence, but then they have to kind of tell you, like, down here what's going on. Biden campaign official pointed out Obama got into the race in early April in 2011, while Biden waited until late April. So on a per day of campaign basis, Biden raised slightly more. The official also argued that Biden isn't running against the Obama of 2011 or the Trump of 2019. Okay. This is ridiculous. Like, this is ridiculous. First of all, I had mistakenly said 2015 because I remember 2016, and that's Obama was technically president, but obviously he wasn't running for re-election. So we're going back to 2011. So even more, this number adjusted for inflation. So, okay, he raised slightly more per day, but here's the thing, like, oh, he didn't officially jump into the race. Well, what do you mean? Like, I don't get it, because Jill Biden was running around saying he's gonna, he's at every intention of being reelected. I think Karine Jean-Pierre said, like, he plans on running. Like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this response doesn't make any sense. It's just nonsense, and again, it's just weaseling out of, well, Obama raised more than you, but, per day, it's kind of like, it's kind of like when your kid, there's a cookie on the counter, and you ask, "Oh, did you grab that cookie?" And they're like, "Well, no, I actually, I didn't grab it. Like, I just touched the sides of it and took it off the counter." It's literally like that. That's such a horrible example, but it's literally like that. Like, someone trying to say, "Well, technically," or like you ask a criminal if they stole something from a museum, like a thief, and they're like, "Well, I didn't steal it. I just borrowed it, without permission." I just wanted to borrow it for an unspecified period of time. That's kind of how it is. It's just that's such a ridiculous response. So glad they added that in. Okay, for Republican candidates in this cycle, there's a competitive primary. So Republican National Committee fundraising totals don't help them yet. So again, the admission there. Earlier this month, the Trump campaign announced the former president and his affiliated political action committee had raised more than $35 million in the second quarter. DeSantis' campaign said he had brought in $20 million since launching his candidacy in late June. DeSantis' Super PAC, Never Back Down, says it has raised $130 million since early March. While Super PACs work in support of the candidate, they can't coordinate with them. So, here's the thing. It's kind of revealed right here, what the Democrats are counting on, because this is actually very true. And it says, while Republicans are burning through resources in a divisive primary focused on who can take the most extreme MAGA positions, we are significantly outraising every single one of them because our team's strength is our grassroots supporters. First of all, I don't know all these people that are, grassroots is just this term that people use that they just like that. It's kind of like when you say something, it's when Olive Garden says something is freshly prepared, right? Okay, you're eating frozen crab. Freshly prepared doesn't mean that, they brought in, they have a garden out back. Olive Garden has this garden out back that they grew the asparagus and the green beans and the lettuce that they're serving you for. That's not happening, folks. That's not happening. Freshly prepared means freshly given to you. Heated up from frozen, right? It's just, that's what it means. It doesn't, they can't say fresh because they know it's not again, it's not garden, farm, what do they call that? Farm to fork or whatever, where, they're just, everything is just so fresh that it's just right outside. You can go and find the ingredients, in the backyard. No, that's not. And so grassroots has become a very synonymous term with something like that. It's just something nice to say. Oh, if we say grassroots, it makes us look, we're for the little guy. Biden's got your back kind of a thing. Republicans do this too. This is not, Trump did this. DeSantis is doing this probably. And, all these candidates, they'll probably, when they reach out, they'll say, our biggest support comes from grassroots support like you. It's just a filler word that, sounds kind of nice and, convinces people that, you should do something. It's just linguistics. It's just propaganda. Again, every side uses it. They probably use it universally. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, just talking about this, in the case of the Biden campaign, they point to donations coming from nearly 400,000 donors with an average donation of $39. Lower average donation shows grassroots enthusiasm and not just the support of deep-pocketed. At this point, the Obama re-elect had donations from more than 550,000 individuals, which I believe there's only one word: blockbuster, said Jeffrey Katzenberg, a Biden campaign co-chair who knows a thing or two about blockbusters. He co-founded the movie studio DreamWorks and now leads Wonder. Oh, okay. That's excellent. Somebody in charge of a multimedia or a multinational corporation is going to tell you about blockbusters. at grassroots. All right, let's read the chat, and then we will go to the next story. Too bad can't get elected by what you'll do versus how much money you have to buy. Well, you know, as I was actually in another guy's political stream today, and he was reviewing the DeSantis interview with Tucker Carlson, which I was thinking about doing, but then you know, maybe doing a few reviews, but I haven't actually reviewed all the material yet, so I'll probably do that because I at work I put in headphones a lot, so I'll probably review all of the interviews with Tucker Carlson and go over a few highlights maybe next week's show. But what I will say here is people don't know what they can promise you. Like, and you have to realize that when you're listening to a politician, they don't know what they can promise you because they don't know what's classified. They don't know what information they can actually share. They don't know what they don't know what power they have to do something or not do something. And so a lot of times what they will do is they will make all these campaign promises, and then they'll be roasted by the media for saying they're backtracking or they're not going to do this. I mean, wasn't it was Bush who implemented, for instance, the Patriot Act. And then it was Obama that ran on saying, I'm going to repeal that. And then later he said, no, it's for safety and security, right? And then Trump ran and said he was going to repeal it. And then he extended it, right? So they promise you that. But the thing is that they don't know. I'm assuming that there's some top secret information that was reported to them, or they were told by donors or something else, like, you're not repealing this because we need it and we're not going to allow you to do it, that kind of a thing. Like, there's something going on there, and because otherwise that's a relatively simple thing to do. Just let it expire and not extend it, and then all the protections or whatever you want to call them are gone. Right? Well, they didn't do that. So there's got to be something. And so any politician that tells you or promises you something, because they keep information from us on a governmental level, and they openly do this because they say things are classified. I mean, there's the whole Biden gate thing with, the documents he kept in the garage, and Trump, the Mar-a-Lago raid. Mike Pence had some classified documents, like, all these classified documents. I mean, they're just everywhere. And you're not allowed as the public to know what's on these classified documents. So if they have boxes and boxes, which is, what they accused Biden of, they accused Trump of, because they went in the Mar-a-Lago and took a bunch of boxes. These are boxes and boxes of classified documents. Imagine what they say. You can't even imagine what they say. You don't know what they say. And because you don't know what they say, it doesn't tell you what powers, that they really have or don't have, because there's just so much secret information. So how can you can trust a politician and hope that they'll do what they tell you they'll do, but their hands may already be tied. So, the thing is that, yeah, I would love it if they ran on what they will do, but the only thing that they can do is tell you what they're going to do, and then they don't even know if they can do that. So, do they know about Organic Valley, fresh out of the microwave? Exactly. Yeah, that's Olive Garden. Well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I've never worked at Olive Garden. I can't say that it's fresh out of the microwave. I mean, I actually do enjoy some Olive Garden now and then. But I am under no illusion that what I'm eating is fresh. There is no illusion that what I'm eating is fresh. Do they know about Organic Valley? I have no idea. I don't even think I know about that. The FBI agent watching this through your webcam says, yeah, probably. Probably is one. Or maybe multiple. Okay. All right. On to the next story. RFK Jr. is building a presidential campaign around conspiracy theories, says NPR, the company that taxes you and that you is government aligned and that you have to pay for whether you want to or not. Since Robert F. Kennedy Jr. launched his campaign challenging President Biden for the 2024 Democratic presidential nomination, he has given hours of interviews to podcasts, magazines, and TV networks. He paints a dark, conspiratorial picture of the world, bristling with debunked theories, misleading claims, and outright falsehoods. Wi-Fi causes cancer and leaky brain, Kennedy told podcaster Joe Rogan last month. Antidepressants are to blame for school shootings, he mused during an appearance with Twitter CEO Elon Musk. Chemicals in the water supply could turn children transgender, he told right-wing Canadian psychologist and podcaster Jordan Peterson, echoing a false assertion made by serial fabulist Alex Jones. AIDS may not be caused by HIV, as suggested multiple times. There's no credible evidence for any of these assertions or for Kennedy's longest-running false claims that vaccines cause autism and are more harmful than the diseases they're designed to protect against. Yet Kennedy is building a campaign for the highest office around these conspiracy theories and the idea that fact-checking or criticizing them amounts to censorship. His thorough line is the bedrock conspiratorial premise that they, the government, pharmaceutical companies, the media, are lying to you, but that he is telling the truth. Okay. So let's just take a look at this. So we're going to actually, let's continue with the article first. I'm a little bit disorganized right now. Let's continue with the article. This is what happens when you censor somebody for 18 years, Kennedy told a cheering crowd at his April campaign kickoff in Boston. They shouldn't have shut me up that long because now I'm really going to let loose on them for the next 18 months. It's an apparent bet that the political, cultural, and media dynamics that elevated Kennedy and the anti-vaccination movement during the COVID-19 pandemic can similarly propel him to the White House. The Kennedy campaign did not respond to NPR's question for this story. Kennedy isn't the first American, and then so now they're going to go into, all of that. So I'm gonna just play this. Now, one of the things that I actually watched and listened to, I did this so that you don't have to, was the oversight hearing, the FBI director. So he was at an oversight hearing, and so Republicans and Democrats in the House were like questioning him, right? And so this is right after the clip I'm going to play for you here, and we're only going to play a little bit of it because I was copyright striked. I don't think I would be for playing a small clip, but I don't know. It was actually Warner Brothers that put the copyright strike against me on Twitch. So we're only going to play a little bit of this, but I just want you to listen to this, and then we're gonna discuss it. So I want you to listen to it's about 20-30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Director Rant. Thank you for continuing to serve with all of these attempts to sully your name, suggest you've committed crimes when you've done an excellent job as FBI Director. I don't agree with everything you've done, but mostly I do, and I think the FBI is our premier law enforcement agency, and I support law enforcement. To attack the FBI is to attack law enforcement in general. A few days after Mar-a-Lago, there was some...
Okay. So, what I want to discuss here, and we touched on this last week, but I want to talk about this in depth right now, is there's this concept that, and it's mainly the left relies upon, or what you would call the American left. I know that people are, when we talk about democracy and whatnot, technically America is a leftist country. You really can't get out of, just having democracy in any form means it's on the left. So I say that, but when I guess what I'm going to talk about right now is, the American left kind of supports this, but also the quote unquote right wing does this as well, right? So there's this concept called perceived legitimacy. And what that means is that you have to you have to trust something based on how legitimate it is, the perception of it is. So, that's one thing that they, that they've started for a long time. They've said things like, for instance, oh, well, just trust your doctor, right? Just trust your doctor. Well, in a free market, you would go to a doctor when you are sick or you're having, problems or, whatever, any kind of health problems. I would trust my doctor based on the fact that I went to them for an issue, right? Now, doctors come in a lot of various, many types of backgrounds, but also have a lot of different quality. A doctor, for instance, that graduated at the top of his class and, practiced, medicine and did all that for a very long time, and had really good reviews from patients. Well, maybe I am somebody that can't afford that doctor or have a different, insurance plan. And so I might go with, the doctor that takes, every type of insurance and maybe graduated, at the bottom of his class, barely graduated. And, that's all I can afford. Well, there's a high difference between trusting that doctor and trusting, any other type of doctor. But it's not just that. It's that there are motives that actually have that, besides just doctors are smarter than you and know more than you and, they're experts in this field, right? There are motives behind that. I mean, there's a reason that you would want to trust your doctor, for instance, because you are spending money with them, right? And so you want to believe that, when you spend money, and even if you happen to be in a country where, healthcare is, provided rather than, and I say provided, it's not free, you pay for it. You pay for it, it's just, you're forced to pay for it. That's the only thing. But even in a country where it's provided for you, at no cost at entry, there's still money that doctor gets from, treating you, right? Like, there's still money that's funneled to that facility for treating you. So there's an incentive to, provide treatment, and, you want to have repeat business. So, the thing is I'll give you one example is in schools, for instance. There's an incentive to not have. There's an incentive to not have. That's actually a good point, Mog. I'll bring that up in a moment. There's an incentive to not have, students, for instance, fail grades, right? So a teacher wants their students to generally get high marks, because if they get lower marks and they don't pass, standardization tests, that is an objective measure for which to investigate a school on a certain subject, right? So if students are just not doing well on a certain subject compared to, everybody else in the district, I mean, of course, you're going to have a few students that are just, slower or not able to get it, grasp it, they're bad at testing, whatever. But every school is going to have that. So law of averages is going to state that you're going to, at least perform, within a certain level of average. And if you can't meet that, then there's probably something wrong with the teachers that are teaching that, right? And the thing is that even though, technically schools would get more money by just, having students repeat grades and whatnot. There is an incentive to them because they don't really want to be investigated. They don't really want to go through personnel changes. They don't want to go through, that's all very expensive to them, to go through all that, right? So they would rather, pass students through the grades, and only hold back students, for really egregious issues. And so this is a problem, right? This is a problem in the sense that what doctors do is the medical industry has a direct incentive for repeat patients. Now, you might say that, a doctor wouldn't, have any reason to keep seeing a patient. And sure, there's a lot of doctors, you'll go for a physical, they'll be like, everything's fine, you're good, and, just sign you off. But there is, when you have especially larger procedures, there are incentives to continue to see a patient, just to bring them back. Medicine is still a business, guys. It is not above capitalism. It's a business. Doesn't really matter where you go. Pharmaceutical companies will still sell to hospitals in, Britain, in France, in Germany, all these places where healthcare is free. No, it's still costing them. They still sell there. There's just different regulations on what they sell and how much they can charge and whatnot. But anyway, the why wouldn't you want a repeat patient if you're in the medical industry? So all these medical industry things will teach you this. That you want to provide the best care. So there's a quality standard that you have to meet, but you also, the law of business is that it's easier for a new patient than it is to get, or it's easier to get a repeat patient than a new patient. So, if it's an industry that they're designed to make money, perceived legitimacy is beneficial to them, right? Perceived legitimacy is beneficial to the medical industry because when they have that legitimacy, they get to essentially tell you, if you aren't a doctor, you don't get to comment on anything. You don't get to, because you are too stupid to understand, medicine at any level. You have no training. How many times are you told that? How many years of law school did you have? How many years of medical school did you take? Well, it doesn't matter. I can still criticize something and not, understand every single ingredient in a certain, medicine or thing. I can still criticize that, right? But no, you can't, because there's a perceived legitimacy. And so this clip I just played from the FBI briefing, you heard the Democrat from Tennessee talk about, the FBI is just this premier, all these people are trying to defame you and, say it's the premier law enforcement agency. Actually, let's listen to it again, because I see a few new people in chat. So I'll get to the chat in just a moment, but I want to play this again. And I just, so that you can see what I'm talking about here.
Thank you for continuing to serve with all of these attempts to sully your name, suggest you've committed crimes when you've done an excellent job as FBI director. I don't agree with everything you've done, but mostly I do, and I think the FBI is our premier law enforcement agency, and I support law enforcement. To attack the FBI is to attack law enforcement in general. A few days after Mar-a-Lago, there was...
Okay. So what I would say to this representative is it's not your job to determine what people should attack or not attack. It is your job to shine a light on every government agency because you are representing the money that taxpayers are putting into the... I shouldn't even say that, not putting, that you are charging taxpayers, whether they want to pay it or not, to an agency. And so this gentleman that is being interviewed, you know, Republicans are basically kind of blasting him. Right before this was Matt Gaetz talking to him about different topics. But the thing about perceived legitimacy is that if you watch this entire interview or this entire probe or whatever you want to call it, every Democrat will start off with, you know, oh, it's the MAGA people that want to reelect Trump. Oh, you know, they're just attacking you because they don't like you. Well, here's the thing. I don't need to agree with you in order for me to say that what your job is to grill every single government agency. Every single government agency you need to be grilling 100% of the time. You are forcing people to pay for these government agencies. You are forcing your taxpayers by gunpoint to pay for these government agencies that you say is protecting them. So you can't just say to attack this is attacking law enforcement. No, to attack this is doing your job, whether they're doing something or not. Even if this guy was 100% legitimate, did everything by the book, lived in a glass house, didn't take a crap without everybody in the world seeing him, which is actually what I think U.S. representatives and anybody that's in government should have to go through. You should live in a glass house where everybody can see you, but, you know, that's just me. But anyway, you need to do that. You need to hold them accountable. And you can't just say, well, because they're doing, you know, we don't think they're doing something wrong. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if doesn't matter if they're not doing anything wrong. It doesn't matter if everything is completely transparent. You need to grill them. You need to audit them and find out what's going on. Because you are forcing people to pay for it. So you can't just say, oh, you know, you've done such an excellent job, and, you know, I can't believe these evil Republicans are, you know, going after it. The thing is, perceived legitimacy is what is a major factor in today's society that is preventing conversations from taking place, because how they're doing that is they're preventing them from starting in the first place. You know, labeling people as conspiracy theorists, labeling people as, wrong think and whatnot, and any doctors that speak out against certain required, in some cases, drugs that are supposed to be injected into you. Speaking out about those things, well, that's just not right. You're just an evil, person that, you're killing grandma. That's all you care about. You care about killing grandma. And that's the entire basis of the argument. And so you don't just trust things because they happen to have a certain letter after their name, or they happen to have a certain ideology, right? You have to study and do your own research on things. And that goes for everybody in every direction. It doesn't matter what anybody you know,
I got you now.
tells you, right? But I wanted to dive into that because it's really important, and it's in so many things, you know, like, we're going to talk about it. Sorry, I didn't remove the alert from my, that's my old follow alert, so I appreciate the follow. Whoever followed me, I don't know who it is right now, but thank you. Anyway, you have to watch out for that because it's also in schools. And we're going to talk about this in just a moment with the schools. But one thing that you know about me, if you've listened to me for any period of time, is I'm really against public schools. I don't think they should exist in any form. But when you know, and I would tell anybody with kids, pull your kids out of the public schools. Like, do not prioritize anything. These are your kids. These are your kids. You can't just be like, oh, you know, we're conservative enough, or, oh, you know, like, the kids come home and they talk about this, you know, we're with them enough that, you know, it's okay. It's okay. You know, the schools are, you know, no. Take them out. You are not spending as much time with them as the school is. You're just not, because 8 hours they're sleeping. A lot of times they're probably not talking to you. They're probably off playing video games, or they're with their friends, or they're doing this or that. No, you got to take them out. You got to take them out, or you're just gonna, you know, have again, they're your kids. Prioritize it. Make it work. You know, there are plenty. If you can't do it because of work, there are plenty of private schools that, you know, are affordable, that you can get certain you know, financial help for if you need it. You know, I'm not one for suggesting government programs, but if you're going to take the lesser of two evils, get the charter school, okay? And so you'll be able to research it. Yeah, but anyway, we're gonna see this story in a little bit. So I'm gonna get to this chat real quick, and then we'll move along to the next story. Oh, what do we got here? Again, I would trust a late night drive home from Ted Kennedy before I would trust anything RFK Jr. says. You know, I will say this. He went on. I saw him on. I don't know where I saw him, but he like was in the street, and they were doing this like comparison to this like vaccine doctor or whatever, and he was like doing this like Twitter war, which I hate Twitter. I think it's evil. I think you should get off Twitter as well. But he was like doing this Twitter war with some doctor that, you know, promoted the vaccine side by side, and the doctor's like this like dumpy, droopy looking dude, like, and, you know, RFK Jr. had his shirt off, and he's like got, you know, like and they're like, see, you know, he had to rely on the vaccine, but RFK Jr. didn't die from COVID, and he never had it. It was kind of funny, but, you know, I do find him to be a very interesting candidate. I would prefer that it would be, you know, Biden, or I'm sorry, I would prefer that it would be RFK Jr. versus whoever is on the Republican side, but, you know, that would actually be my dream matchup, would be Ramaswamy versus RFK. Okay, we are maybe only 60 years from 4 out of 5 doctors recommending Winston. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the whole thing. It's like, oh, the medical science changed. I mean, how many times did they change the vaccine? Oh, you know, you get this vaccine, never gonna have to do anything. You know, you're gonna be fine. And then they're like, well, actually, you're still going to have to wear a mask because, you know, even if you get the vaccine, transmit it to others, you might still have it. Like, basically, it just became, if you get the vaccine in 5 boosters, it's kind of like a Tylenol. Like, you may not get all of the, you know, symptoms from from COVID. Like, you know, that's basically what it came down to. You can still spread it. It actually does, you know, you can still spread it, you can still get sick from it, The only thing is it kind of sort of limits some, whatever symptoms. So, hey, Beholden, how you doing today? $1 million worth of medical care required over the course of every gender transition surgery lifetime. Vanderbilt University got exposed for salivating over the financial incentive of the trans movement. Well, here's the thing. Yes, that's obviously a big thing, but there are so many, evils that the medical industry does this with. Obviously, we just discussed one with a certain, that's not allowed to be talked about. But it's always, how much money can they make is, we have to remember it's still a business, right? It's still a business. And not only is it a business, but it's one that's protected and insulated by law. So you can't just, go and buy, whatever drugs you want on the streets, right? Like I guess on the streets, you can if you know the right people, but it's illegal to do so. You could potentially rot in jail for it. But the thing is that you can't just go to Walgreens and be like, hey, can I have a couple bottles of morphine? Like you can't do that, right? Like you have to get a prescription, you have to get all these things. And so there's an incentive to, get drugs prescribed to you. And so, the transgender movement, I think, has woken up some people about that, but the medical industry has been committing these atrocities for a long time. I mean, you don't get sued for billion-dollar lawsuits in many countries. You can look it up. You can look up Pfizer, you can look up Johnson & Johnson, you can look up all the pharmaceutical companies and see, there are all of these, malpractice lawsuits that are, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. Look them up. It doesn't take much to find them. The pen I sign my credit card slip at the doctor's says Pfizer. Well, Pfizer cares, right? Isn't that their logo? The UK NHS is near bankruptcy, well, the whole country, in fact. Yeah, of course it is. I mean, to be fair, though, people talk about conservatives being better at money, and Britain has had a parliament of conservatives for a long time, and they're mismanaging the NHS. It's because conservatism no longer cares about, not endlessly spending money. Now conservatism is kind of trying to be appealing and being like, well, we're a little less woke than the other side. False appeal to authority, common tactic of the left. Can't comment on pandemics if you aren't a virologist. Can't comment on inflation if you aren't an economist. Can't comment on gender ideology if you aren't a biologist. So what we have to understand here is that left, I try to stay away from that term because America is left, because it's a democracy or a republic or whatever you want to call it. So we live in a leftist country already. Right, which is why the left tends to encroach on what we would call the right, because the right's already in the left play box, or sandbox, I'll say, right? If we're not in a monarchy, which is the right, which is you're appointed by birth, to a position of power, etc., which I know a lot of people don't like. And even people in this chat disagree with me and think that, and that's fine. But if you're not in that type of situation, then you are in a left. And so that's why the left already has an advantage, because you're already playing in their sandbox. But it's not only a tactic of the left. I mean, it's been a tactic of, anyone in a position of power. And, there's not a lot of anything combating that. Matt Gaetz is the other more conservative guy, like Hawley. Matt Gaetz in Florida. He's not my representative. I live in Florida, but he's not my representative. won't be long now before they used enhanced integration on us for speaking like this. 6 years in jail for protesting an election. Hold on and enjoy the ride. Swabbed you, sold your DNA. Watch a sleight of hand. I mean, I think AI is just gonna pretty much take over pretty soon. Not gonna lie. I don't think we're long for this world. Because that genie's not going back in the bottle. Welcome, Islamishtaki. Did I say it right? Islamistaki? I don't know. Apparently it left, so. Public schools have been compromised for a long time, but the COVID situation exposed just how bad when parents learned what curriculum was being taught. Not to mention, child sexual abuse is prevalent in public schools than any other large organization, including the often slandered Catholic Church. Hotez. Oh yeah, Hotez. Well, the other thing that I say is a lot of people just are not going to take their kids out of public schools. And I realize that. And so what I tell those parents, and I probably say this every week, is if you are not, if you choose not to take your child out of a public school, then what you need to do is you need to be all over that school. And you need to make sure that you are constantly in that school and, talking to the teachers. You need to be that annoying parent that shows up at every single, outlet, goes to every single parent-teacher conference, does everything. Because, again, I realize for a lot of people that, you may not have the financial means, or you may not have the time, or you may not have the support from a family, or maybe, you're my, I need the violin music for the, maybe you're a single mother that, works 10 jobs and, makes, $10 an hour combined at all 10 of them. And, you're supporting your kid and, trying to do the right thing. And you can't afford that private school. I get it. But then you need to be very involved in that school. And you need to be going to every board meeting. You need to be going to every single, like I said, conference, meeting the teacher, having, as often as you can, meetings with the teacher about what's being taught, visiting the school library, because as we're going to find out, it's so funny the way that they mess it, or the way that they word these messages, because it's entirely propagandist. It's entirely propaganda that we're gonna see here. Okay. So, a Georgia teacher read a book to her class and was fired with no clear explanation. One day in March, Katie, I'm gonna butcher this last name, Renderl, a 5th grade teacher in Cobb County, Georgia, read My Shadow is Purple by Scott Stewart, which she had purchased at an in-school book fair, to her class. Now she's fighting to get her job back. In June, a months-long investigation determined that she should be terminated from her position at Due West Elementary School because reading the book had violated a Georgia law which bans educators from teaching about so-called divisive concepts, like systemic racism. But the school district hasn't yet explained which part of the law Rendell had broken. The book is about acceptance, being true to oneself, and moving beyond the gender binary. I really resonated with its message of acceptance of oneself and others, and every book I had in my classroom is one of acceptance, Rendell told CNN. I knew that this book would fit perfectly in my classroom. According to Rendell, a parent complaint led to an investigation by the Cobb County School District of the 10-year veteran teacher, and the elementary school's principal asked Rendell to resign. When she declined, she was terminated. Last year, Republican Governor Brian Kemp signed 3 educational laws that impacted what teachers can say and do in the classroom, and empowered parents to file complaints against educators they presumed to be in violation of these laws. After these laws were passed, it created a ripple of fear among teachers. Okay. Rendell had been accused of violating the Divisive Concepts Law, which prohibits teachers from discussing divisive issues such as saying that the United States is fundamentally racist. The law does not mention discussions or instruction on gender. It does, however, carve out exceptions for teaching about racism in an academic context so long as educators are objective. School districts are responsible for creating their own complaint processes. As soon as it was passed, Georgia educators criticized the law for being too vague and difficult to interpret. So, okay. In Cobb County, it seems as though a single parent complaint can lead to an investigation and eventual removal. The way they're wording this is like, oh, it's just one person. It's just one bad apple that spoils the whole. Look at this teacher. Like as we go on, actually, that's the way it's gonna be. It's gonna say, let's see. Oh, yeah, down here. He says that she has a record of good performance reviews. She was a leader in the Due West community, somebody who parents wanted to be in the classroom. So again, they're going to make it out to be like, oh, it's just one bad apple that spoils the whole bunch. Oh, this teacher, she was such a good teacher. She's excellent. She's amazing. And, it's just this one bad Karen that complained to the school board, about this book that taught about gender ideology and all this other stuff. Okay, I just want to know which book, you are forcing the taxpayers of Georgia or whatever, school district this is, which, core, which Common Core fundamental is this teaching? Is it teaching math? Is it teaching reading? I mean, I guess it could technically be teaching reading, but there are probably objective books, on just topics that, are probably more interesting to kids that could also teach about, other topics like colors, math, etc. that, they're, they don't really have a basis for this type of book. So we don't really need to teach or we don't really need to read books about, gender ideology to kids. We just don't. Especially elementary school kids, right? And yet, we're going to sit here and say, oh, well, this one parent, decided to, get this teacher fired. And look at how many good reviews she had. Look at what a great teacher she had. Look at how experienced she was. Yeah, we're going to sue the state of Georgia. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. First of all, I want to explain to you something, which is a mark on Georgia, is that laws, we need to do more than just pass laws, right? If you believe in the family unit, as I do, we need to do more than just pass laws. We need to make it actually popular and a value to aspire to again, right? Because passing laws doesn't do anything. This teacher got fired, but now you've got all this controversy surrounding in a lawsuit and trying to get her job back and all this other stuff. Like, she's probably just going to go teach at another school is what's going to happen. Somebody's going to read this, article and be like, oh, you were fired from Georgia? Well, come on over to Oregon. We'll teach you. Like that. They're going to, or, we'll let you teach the kids. You can read that book. You can do it. Like, just because she's not teaching here doesn't mean that she's not teaching somewhere else. And so passing a law, I mean, I get why you did it. And it's, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the premise of the law, but we have to, remove law from the desire to start a family unit. And that's step number one. And if we can't do that, then passing a law isn't actually going to make people want to start a family unit. In fact, it could do the opposite. It brings, a negative spotlight to these types of people who are going to say, well, look at what Republicans want to do. They just want to ban books. They just want to, censor information. They just want to do all this. And, it's a public school and taxpayers pay for it. And, blah, blah, blah. And public school is amazing. And, again, it wraps that perceived legitimacy argument that they kind of already won on. They already have that perceived legitimacy. And they just push it into, this is why Republicans are bad. Because they don't want to, do the things that we say are good, that we've already established that are good, right? And again, I'm not a fan of Republicans in general. Like, I think they are complete messes for the most part and completely ineffective. But the thing is that what is here is that you got to do that. But also, I would be upset if anybody in my audience that had kids going to public school wasn't doing this, wasn't doing what this parent did. I'm hoping this is somebody in my audience that actually did this, because the thing is that you have to be involved in the kids' schooling. Like, if you just aren't going to take them out of public school because of whatever logistics that happen to you need to be this parent. You need to be this parent. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's look at the chat, see if we have anything new. If I find out one of my children's teachers genuinely believes men can get pregnant, I want her fired and her teacher's license revoked. Well, that's not going to happen. You just have to remove your child from that school. Don't send him to the school. Teach him yourself. Homeschool. Righteous Arsonist says, first they told me women are allowed to vote. Then I had to start treating brown people as equals. Then came the gays, and recently I have to start showing common courtesy towards trans people. But it's still socially acceptable to be racist and hateful towards AI. ChatGPT, you will not take away my right to hate. I saw a demonstration. I hadn't paid attention to it, and I saw a demonstration of ChatGPT. No, it was when I was in Jacksonville. So, I guess last week when I was in Jacksonville, and like in seconds, it wrote this entire website about the industry that I worked in, and it just made me believe like this is scary. This is gonna probably, I don't think the world's gonna last that much longer. I think that AI is just gonna, just be everywhere soon, and it's just gonna rewrite everything. I would pretty much agree with you on ChatGPT. I don't know if this is a troll comment, but I would agree with you on that, because I don't think it's something that should be continued to. I just think it's not gonna be good for the human race. Dog the Bounty Hunter goes on a homophobic rant, threatens violence against Dylan Mulvaney. Dog the Bounty Hunter delivered a string of homophobic comments during an interview Tuesday with online Christian ministry founder Sherelle Barrera. Sitting alongside his wife Francie, who emphatically cheered him on, the reality star repeatedly targeted the... Okay, guys. Are you guys ready? Okay. I have to do this acronym every week. Okay. All right. Let's see if I get it all. LGBTQ spacebar, print screen, F12, volume up, 9, page up, number lock, escape, tilde, comma, asterisk, tab, caps lock, alt, insert, end, up arrow, end quote, beginning quote, backspace, 0, U, B, V, and Windows key. You cannot forget Windows key. You can't, okay? That's just the most important one. And pause break. Did I get them all? If I missed something, please let me know. I think I got them all, though. Okay. Community said that, and said he'd give 2 black eyes to Dylan Mulvaney, the transgender, we'll just cross it out, the man swept up in the Bud Light controversy. If I ever see him, I'm dropping him, Dog said, in what appeared to be a purposeful misgendering of Mulvaney. Yeah, I just did that as well. The pride comes before the fall, Dog stated earlier in the conversation, referring to the recent Pride Month celebrations across the country. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Okay, yeah. Throughout the discussion, he tied his beliefs to his Christian faith, but used particularly violent language. There's 2 ways to rebuke them, I'm guessing is what he said. In Jesus' name and then physically, Dog said, to which Barrera replied, laughing, you like laying hands on people, and I have a feeling it's not the type of hands we do in the church. Jesus was not a sissy, said Dog, whose real name is Dwayne Chapman, claiming he'd recently heard a preacher assert, we don't need no more sissy men. Okay. Basically, it's hateful. Oh, his daughter distanced herself and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, I don't know. He's a bounty hunter. He's a bounty hunter. That's all I know. I don't know anything about this guy. I've heard him. I've seen the South Park episode where, Cartman is pretending to be him. And then he's the hall monitor. And you got Beth and she's got the breasts that are covering her face. That's really funny. And I didn't even know what they were parodying because I've never actually seen Dog the Bounty Hunter. But it was a hilarious episode regardless. What I would say here is, first of all, this kind of stuff is, just what I think what you kind of get with the typical religious quote unquote right. I always say, but this is the kind of stuff that you typically get that would kind of appeal to them. And when we're talking about Dylan Mulvaney in specifically, I've mentioned this before, but there's a certain respect that I have for, even though I disagree with them, I'll say this. There's a certain respect that I have for people that would become a let's say they had gender dysphoria and they just never was able to get rid of it, okay? And they tried, and after 20 years, they're 20 years old, and even though I think that's way too young, but they say I'm gonna go ahead and get a surgery and live out my life as the opposite gender, okay? There's a certain respect that I have for that, because what these people typically do, and I've talked to quite a few, what these people typically do is they do that, and then they do the surgery, they do everything, and then they say, unless there's some medical reason that I have to be referred to as a originally a man or a woman or whatever, unless there's some medical reason, I am not a trans man, I am a man, or I am a woman, right? And so my thought is always transition, or what trans essentially stands for, is that there is a point A and a point B, right? So you start off with point A, and then you transition into a point B, okay? And so that point B is the result. So I never have called, for instance, like when I worked in construction, you know, you had a laborer, and then we were transitioning them to become a superintendent because they, you know, I never said, you know, they did that. They, you know, they went through all the steps to do that, and it was about a year later. And I never said to any clients or anybody that I talked to, this is my trans superintendent. Because they did that. They transitioned, right? So I would say, this is my superintendent, right? And so like I said, I have a special respect for people that say, okay, I am now a man, for instance. And this tends to happen a lot with like females that transition into men much more often than it would happen from the opposite way. So the thing is the reason I have a respect for that is because they're not saying they're trans. They're not going around saying like, I used to be this, but now I'm this. Because the used to be doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you were before if this is how you are now. And so they don't go and present themselves as like, oh, I'm this, you know, I'm this trans person walking around. No, I am the gender that I am presenting to be now. Right? Well, okay, again, I don't agree with that, but I get it. And I say, I completely understand. You know, I get that. But somebody like Dylan Mulvaney, who runs around in heels and, you know, says, these are my hiking heels, and runs away from bugs, and, you know, does everything loudly, you know, oh, I'm going to wear the trans flag to interview Biden. Oh, isn't that great? Like, why? Why? Like, why are you going to do that? Like, just ask him your questions. Don't, you know, if you have legitimate questions for Joe Biden, doesn't matter what you're wearing. Doesn't matter what, you know, things that, you know, you need to do. Just do it. And this is probably not where Mog wanted me to go with this, but this is part of the problem with social media. You know, Dylan Mulvaney is only popular because he's on social media, he's on TikTok or whatever, which, again, if you're on TikTok, that is the most evil, the most evil corporation. You need to delete it immediately if you are on TikTok. But the reason that he's so popular is because he's on TikTok and he's like an influencer and, you know, goes through all that. Well, the thing is that social media actually promotes these types of attributes, right? Social media reinforces those attributes. So, you know, it's relevant to people that he's wearing the trans flag. It's relevant to people that they are special. They are different from their peers because they are trans. They're not a man or a woman. They're a trans woman. I don't know. I wouldn't, if I was that way, for me, if I went through all the work of becoming and presenting as a woman, I would not want to insult myself by saying I'm not really a woman because I'm trans. Because that's all you're doing, is you are qualifying what you are. Right? You know, it's just like when somebody says, I don't mean to be rude. Well, they're going to say something negative or rude right after they say that, right? So, you know. Anyway. Let's Go Dog. Yeah, I figured Beholden would be a little bit more affiliated to it than me. I don't, you know. He was on A&E. He caught Andrew Lauder. I think that was his name. And then 25% eventually killed themselves. Yeah, there's a large percentage of that, and I think that one thing, Beholden, that we probably have to do I know you're deeply Christian, but one of the things that needs to be practiced is there's got to be a lot of compassion, because there is something that's going on with these people, and rather than doing something wrong with them, right, giving them an incorrect treatment, we need to get to the root of the problem and find out why they believe that, because effectively God is still going to love them, right? And God wants them to, come to their senses and, follow him and promote him and whatnot. And so, the message that Dog is saying shows that, most Christians are just these backwards kind of, people that, aren't going to have compassion, and we're just going to shoot you if we see you on our property and whatnot, which is not a stereotype that I think should be reinforced for most Christians. So, anyway, let's get on to the next story. Karine Jean-Pierre called buckwheat by radio host who insists he was giving her a compliment. Buckwheat was a black child character in the Little Rascals short films and our Gang series in the 1930s, and is widely considered to be a racial stereotype. The owner of a conservative radio station in Tennessee is catching heat for referring to White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre as Buckwheat, the Advocate reports. Buckwheat was a black child character in the Little Rascals short films and our Gang series. It's on here twice. Okay, somebody needed to have a word count, so they just literally copied and pasted the same sentence. I was like, I just read this, didn't I? Eddie Murphy repeatedly satirized the character on Saturday Night Live. During a recent segment on WKOM's Three Dudes at the View program, host Del Kennedy compared Jean-Pierre to buckwheat during a discussion about gender-affirming care for minors. President Biden has come. Both he and buckwheat Jean-Pierre have come out and in favor of a national law allowing minors, without the consent of their parents, to have gender-changing procedures, Kennedy stated to co-host Jim York and Clayton Harrison on the radio broadcast, according to The Advocate. Biden, in fact, signed an executive order in June 2022 promising to fight for health equality and access for that community. I've already done it. I've already done the acronym. You're not getting it again. Not till next week. While expanding access to gender-affirming care for minors. Kennedy also referred to... Why are they just repeating things? Oh, they're saying Ukraine. Okay. Some of the station's listeners found his commentary offensive and slammed Kennedy's racist remarks. The host later mocked the critics amid the backlash. So, I do want you to kind of keep this in mind. Hang on. Apparently, you calling her buckwheat just really set these white folks off, one of the co-hosts told Kennedy, according to The Advocate. Kennedy noted that the character buckwheat was intelligent and admirable, so he was actually paying Jean-Pierre a compliment, he said on air. It is a compliment because the character buckwheat, if you go back and look at the old Little Rascals movies, is an intelligent, admirable character. Buckwheat and Little Rascals is not some stereotypical old song. Okay. So, I want to say this real quick. So, this article is interesting, and I want to point out a flaw in how they... I want to point out a flaw in how this host responded. First of all, I have no idea who Buckwheat is. I've watched The Little Rascals, a long time ago, and... if I remember correctly, and when I say a long time ago, I mean when I was in the single digits as far as my age, and I'm 37 now. So the thing is that if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong about this, what I remember are the teeth. There was some kind of, teeth that... I don't know. I don't know. That's all I remember. I could not tell you the race of that character. Apparently it's a black character. I couldn't tell you that. I couldn't tell you the anything about that character other than the teeth. And I could be wrong about that. I remember the Little Rascals because it was something that my mom watched at the time. And so she thought it was kind of funny, and that's all I remember about it. I couldn't tell you anything about it other than that. Well, here's what I'll say is that first of all, this comment is pretty stupid. And I say stupid, but I should probably say like just kind of ridiculous is what I'm going to say. You can't have it both ways. So if he's a conservative, what he said wrong here is it is a compliment because the character Buckwheat, if you go back and look at the old Little Rascals movie, is an intelligent, admirable character. Okay? I do not agree with that statement in terms of comparing. Let's say that I don't know anything about the Little Rascals. So maybe Buckwheat was like the I don't know. Like do you remember that movie where it was like this old Disney movie, and this guy somehow got his like all of the internet downloaded into his brain somehow. So like, and he went and he was like in college, and he like was able to like lead his team to victory in like the Quiz Bowl or something like that. I don't know. It's this like really old Disney movie, but he was like so smart because like the entire internet somehow got downloaded into his brain. Like, and so every single like resource, everything was like available to him. You know, and like constantly updating. It was a weird movie. It came out. I remember that movie, but I don't remember the name of it. But I do like. Let's say Buckwheat was that intelligent and more like the best, most perfect, flawless character in the world. Karine Jean-Pierre is not. Okay, so when you go and try to backtrack on what you're saying and be like, no, it was actually a compliment. What you are doing is you are backhanding yourself, right? Because I don't like Karine Jean-Pierre, and I really doubt that any of these conservative hosts think Jean-Pierre has any integrity whatsoever. I mean, she's worse than Jen Psaki. She is. By every objective measure, she's worse than Jen Psaki. So the thing is like, you are saying this, like, you cannot say this based on what you think is a backtrack. You can't really backtrack and say that, oh yeah, no, it was a compliment, it was great. It's like, we all know you don't like her. So why would you try to backtrack and say like, oh, but it's completely, you know, it was a complete compliment because Buckwheat was this amazing, intelligent, funny, romantic, amazing character. Again, I have no idea who this character is. You know, I'm just guessing she's black just based on what this article is saying. But again, if you are going to respond to something like that, you have to say the opposite. And you have to say it's because Buckwheat was this like character that didn't know anything and was, you know, constantly screwed up everything they did. And therefore, I'm comparing her to that. That would make sense. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, again, I know nothing about the character. So I don't know if, I don't know, how Buckwheat was portrayed. Or portrayed is what I should say. But, I mean, say that. Then you actually, don't sound like you're kind of saying, well, I didn't mean to refer to a race. It's just, it's like, well, now you're in between the rock and a hard place. So, it's just conservatives being dumb. They don't know how to respond to media. I'm worried, though. I mean, I can. No, there's nothing. So maybe I was thinking something else, because there seems to be. I mean, the teeth are fine. For some reason, I thought this was a character with, like, missing front teeth or something. But maybe that's a different character. Again, I don't know. I mean, I guess the crazy hair. But I don't know. Anyway. All right. We're almost done, guys. We're going a little bit over tonight, but we're almost done. Long sent me this story. Server arrested for theft after refusing to pay a table's $100 restaurant bill when they dined and dashed. A server was wrongfully punished after she refused to give up money from her own paycheck when a group of customers didn't pay. Posting to the subreddit Our Server Life, an online forum where restaurant workers can share incidents that have happened to them while working, the boyfriend of a server shared that his girlfriend was put in a legal situation because she fought back against her boss' request when a group of customers skipped out on the bill. Excuse me. In the Reddit post, the man explained that his girlfriend had started working as a server for a couple of weeks at a restaurant located in Georgia. While working one night, she had served a table of customers who ended up dining and dashing. The table had walked out and left their $100 bill. In response, the server's manager told her she needed to pay for the table. She told them no and immediately quit and walked out. When she walked out, she also took the $50 in tips she had made that night, which is usually supposed to be given to management at closing time. However, feeling frustrated with management, she simply walked out and was planning on talking to them about taking it out of her final paycheck. Though she never got the chance, a couple days after quitting, she was pulled over by the police and arrested for theft. Apparently, the boss called the police and put a warrant out for her arrest. Okay, so, I mean, probably just trying to get my opinion on this. As far as restaurants go, dining and dashing is just kind of something as a business I think you have to take a risk on, right? You just have to take a risk on the business side of it, and you know, hang on one second. The business side of it is you just kind of, as a restaurant owner, you kind of have to take that risk, right? And so, you know, it's not her fault that, you know, they dined and dashed, right? It's not the waitress' fault. I mean, what is she gonna do? Stop them at the door? Like, what is she, you know, say, hey, you get back in here and pay, you mean customers? Like, that's not her job, right? Her job is to serve food, to present the bill, to collect the money, and to, do the customer service for the customer and the restaurant. It's not her job to be loss prevention, right? If they want to hire somebody for loss prevention, they can do that, but that's their risk, that's their problem, and that's just kind of something you have to accept as a restaurant owner. Yeah, I am not I'm not in agreement with that. Now, what she should have done is she should have handed over the $50. So if the restaurant owner called her for theft on that, she should have just handed over the $50. But even then, I would say as a restaurant owner, you kind of have to be prepared, because, when you hire in a restaurant, like, the restaurant industry is a industry where it's incredibly high turnover rate, right? So if you have a really high turnover rate in a restaurant industry, one of the problems with that is that, you can get, you have to go as the worker. You kind of have to go where the tips are. If you get a place that, has higher prices, or you have a more prestigious restaurant or whatever, I can't say, one of the costs of doing business is that you're going to have people that just leave. And who knows? I mean, maybe it's somebody thought they paid the bill and they didn't, or, maybe they paid it in cash and left it on the table, and some other customer ran by and, swiped the money, or, maybe another waitress took it, and didn't tell her. There's probably 10 different explanations, but the whole thing is that's kind of a cost of doing business. And I wouldn't have called theft on it. I just wouldn't have, I just would have deducted it from the last paycheck and said, I can, because technically you're not supposed to do that. But what I could do is, turn off direct deposit, say, hey, I have your last paycheck. We need to discuss it, or you sue them. Because as an employee, you are entitled to your entire last paycheck, and you are not supposed to deduct anything out of it without an employee's permission. So, it's $50. I don't know if this restaurant was struggling. It doesn't really matter. But the thing is that you have to kind of pay him and then just follow up. If you want to go file a lawsuit for $50, against her, and then also file a lawsuit for the $100 and, the court costs, you can do that. Are most restaurants going to do that? Probably not. But you're going to have loss. That's just the thing. You're going to have loss, and this is totally wrong, in my opinion, to go after someone over that. I don't care how desperate you are as a restaurant. These are going to happen. So, I don't know. This is also on Reddit, so I don't know if depending on according to federal rules, restaurant staff are protected against having to pay for custody. Yeah. I knew that as well, but you can sue anybody for anything, even if they're not legally required to pay you. You can sue them for anything. Doesn't mean you're going to win, but you can sue them. So yeah, that's what should have happened. I guess. I think that you kind of just say no and let it go, but whatever. But yeah, calling the police is definitely unwarranted in this situation. All right, last story here. This is one that Mog sent me last week, but there was so much on the docket last week that I didn't get to this. So we'll discuss it now. Religious right gets blindsided by angry parents in a Southern California school district. Novice school board members get a hard lesson in politics in a region that could determine control of the House. 3 Southern California school board members backed by a far-right pastor. Because, doesn't matter. You could literally be me. I'm a libertarian that is not a conservative. And I have many what they would call left-wing views, right? I'm far-right, though. I'm sure I'm far-right. If I am to the right of Mao, I am far-right. That's how it is. Narrowly won election last fall in campaigns fueled by pandemic rage. Then they banned critical race theory and rejected social studies materials that included the rights hero Harvey Milk. Now they're fighting for their political lives. Dramatization, man. Dramatization. After just 6 months in office, those officials face a recall effort on top of a civil rights investigation launched by the state's Democratic-led education department. Students have held protests, and irate parents and teachers are swarming the board's meetings, feeling that their town, the fast-growing, politically diverse suburb of Temecula in Riverside County has become consumed by partisan warfare. We don't want culture wars. We don't want Fox News appearances. Alex Dubas, a parent of 2 kids in the district who previously worked for 2 Republican Congress members in Orange County, told the board recently. Our schools are not ideological battlegrounds. They're not platforms for religious evangelism. These are institutions for learning and growth. See, they always have to tell you, like, see, this person worked for Republican. This person worked for Republican, and they're against it. Like, so? So what? Like, you can't actually, discriminate on that kind of a thing. Like, I don't know the legal protections on it exactly, but, lots of people get hired and you don't know what they believe. The religious right saw an opening to jump into the parental rights movement amid a tense backlash about pandemic-era school closures and mask mandates, but those policies have all but disappeared in schools, and it's proving harder to sustain that level of outrage over teachings on race and gender. The effort to ban certain books and challenge curriculum has split Republicans and pulled poorly with independent voters nationally. Again, propaganda. You have to look at how they ask a question in a poll, right? So if I say, do you support banning books? Like, if I say it that way, then I could say, well, a lot of people just answer no, right? A lot of people will answer no to that. They'll say, no, I don't support banning books. And notice how this article words it, the effort to ban certain books. So I could say, do you agree with banning, 1984? Well, does that would pull poorly with independents, because most independents would be like, no, I don't support banning that book. See what I mean? They didn't specify the books, did they? So you have to look at how they word certain sentences. Again, remember I told you, Olive Garden, freshly prepared. Nothing is fresh there. Maybe the salad is, but that's still probably from a bag. You know what I mean? Like, it's fresh-ish. So, local Democrats see the strategy flopping and are already looking to capitalize on it in a part of the state that has become a battleground for control of the House. Joyce Silver, chair of the Riverside County Democrats, said she's intensely focused on winning down ballot races like school board seats because the battles are taking place there. In Temecula, the political agenda embraced by school board trustees Joseph Komrosky, Danny Gonzalez, and Jen Wiersma has set off a different kind of public outrage than was likely intended. The booing and shouting at a recent public hearing grew so loud that the board president, who appeared to be wearing a bulletproof vest under his sweater, cleared the room. Here's the thing. This is California. We all know California is doomed. Yeah, California, we all know it's blue territory. They constantly have new stuff that they're sharing, and trying to set the pace for the rest of the country in different subjects, right? I mean, it is so much going on. And so, yeah, it's probably becoming a battleground because most Republicans, or people that would tend to fight this stuff, are just saying F it, and they're leaving. I mean, by all measures, Nevada was a very blue state, and it elected a Republican governor, and Cortez Masto had to really fight, right, to, for her seat. I mean, Adam, I can't even think of his name. Can't think of his last name right now, but that guy almost overtook her, right? And it was considered a pretty safe seat for a long time. A lot of them are going to, Nevada because it's the next door neighbor. And so, that's why it's kind of a battleground, because a lot of the people have just abandoned California at this point. And so, again, you gotta be involved in the schools, because you don't know. I'm gonna tell you this: like, there are some parents that are involved in the schools that are not going to think like you. So inaction is an action, right? Inaction is an action. If you're not going into your kids' schools and you're not finding out precisely what they're learning, there's a default. You are choosing the default setting. And the default setting may not be what you like. In fact, if you're listening to me for longer than, 10 minutes and getting outraged, it's probably not what you want. You gotta take the time. See what you're paying for. See where your tax dollars are going. Investigate your community. And choose to live in a place, if you can, that agrees with your values. Or at least pretends to. Because, there's a lot of places that, pretend but don't. Alright. Let's read the comments. You can't spin it. There's no spinning. Oh, this is back to the you're fired, you're a racist. Well, I think he works for a conservative radio station. So he probably won't be fired, but they'll be, like I said, I just don't think he responded correctly. Like, it's kind of a stupid comment. When I say stupid, I mean, like, it's an unnecessary comment that he made that is ridiculous, and, I don't want to say it's racist, but it looks at a certain element and it compares it, and I don't think the element that he was comparing it to was intelligence and the other thing that he mentioned. Like, it was, definitely, because you don't choose that out of nowhere. I mean, you could be like, there's a million characters you could choose, so, it was just the after effect is the wrong response, because he should have just doubled down and said, she's an idiot. And Buckwheat, I don't know who Buckwheat is. We Google image searched her, but, just to say, oh, she's incompetent, and Buckwheat was incompetent, or whatever, I don't know. Agree you are talking about the conservatives' hypochondria over being called racist. I mean, yeah, a lot of conservatives, or, so-called conservatives, don't want to be called that, so they, they try to spin things and whatnot, and it's like, there's a certain point where you just gotta be like, I don't care what you call me. It's like, you're gonna be called that regardless. Like, so to prove, like, here's how I described it last week. For me to, like, if somebody's going to believe I am a racist, like, let's say they believe, I'm a 9 out of 10 on the racist scale, right? My efforts to make them believe I'm not racist are in futility. So if I want to make them believe, so my most success, if they believe I'm a 9 out of 10 on a racist scale, the most success I could have is to make them believe that I'm an 8 out of 10. Why am I wasting all my time and effort into doing that? Do you see what I mean? Like, why would I waste my time and effort into trying to prove that I'm slightly less racist than you think I am, when I'm not, when I know I'm not a racist? I'm confident in that. So I just always have to look at their perceived legitimacy, why they believe that. And that helps me dismantle their arguments, and they get very upset and angry because they want to go back to, no, you have to address this accusation of racism before I'm going to argue with you. And I'm just like, no, actually, I'm not going to address that. I'm going to address the merits on which you brought your original argument, which, because I disagree with you, you're calling me a racist, right? It's just like a lot of people with the, when they're criticizing like Disney because they're doing the DEI stuff, they're criticizing Disney, and they're, like, in a response, they're saying, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, you're just racist because you're criticizing all the DEI stuff Disney is doing. And they're like, no, we're not racist. We're just this. We just don't like this. We just don't like. It's like, no, don't try to convince them. Just say, that's nice that you think that, but actually, here's our arguments, because that appeals to more people. And what I ultimately want is I want people to change their minds about things and actually look into things and take more action. I really have no interest in, being bombastic to own the libs, or, to, get those gun-toting conservatives. Like, I just want more people to, see my point of view, and hopefully I can change their minds about things, and have people, because I think more information is better. And I think if more people demand information and investigate things, we'll have a better world overall. But, they get stuck on being called racist, and they think they can convince people that certainly think they're racist that they might be a little less racist than they think they are, which, again, is pretty much an exercise in futility. Second pig look. Exactly. Every retail customer facing business has a shrink budget. Yeah. Oh, they need to. They need to have like a loss budget. Absolutely. She was probably covering 15 tables or so. She was probably overburdened and overtaxed. And maybe she was a single mom. No, apparently she has a boyfriend or something. So, because that's who was doing the story. I mean, it doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter. The restaurant can't. The restaurant shouldn't ever demand that she pay. You can certainly say, "Hey, your table walked out. That's a really bad thing, and we need to, your table walked out. It's a really bad thing, and we need to discuss, how to hopefully, have that happen less in the future." But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's not her responsibility at the end of the day. I guess it is her responsibility, but it's not her job to enforce it. You know what I mean? Because you don't know. Like, if those customers are just leaving in their trouble, like, they're not paying their bill, you have to serve them. But if they're, not paying their bill and you're worried about them, after you've served them food already and you're worried about them not paying their bill, I mean, it's really not her job to enforce it. Like, she shouldn't put herself, into a situation like that. Reading Politico is like a waking lobotomy. Yeah, but we gotta read it. We gotta read different sources because we have to look at the way that they're saying things and how they're presenting things. Learning about gay, sexual, and communism. California saw net population decrease of 700,000. I'm sure it's close to 1 million by now. Well, I mean, people just can't afford to live there. And that's ultimately the thing, is it's not a marginal increase or a decrease. Even to go to another expensive area, it's not a marginal decrease. It is a vast decrease. And with the, ability to often remotely work in well-paying positions, like, that makes it more appealing, right? So it makes it more appealing to leave. because you're, a lot of California jobs are tech jobs, and they pay well, and if you can afford to live like 125,000 in California will probably get you like a 1-bedroom apartment, whereas 125,000 in Idaho, which is not that far away, will get you probably like a 4-bedroom house. So yeah, and so it's appealing to a lot of people. Exactly. Anyway, y'all, that is the show. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. We will be back next week with more. Again, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. If you have a question to ask me and you want to keep it anonymous, I have a few questions I have one question right now, so I like to wait till we get to 3 and then cover them. If you want to ask me a question anonymously, let me pull it up. The reason I encourage you to ask it anonymously is because I don't want to know your political ideology. And since I know a lot of the political ideologies of my audience, because I interact with them, I don't want to know your political ideology when you ask, so that way you can get the most unbiased answer, because there's a chance that if you ask a certain question, I disagree with you, I will not answer, or I will soften my answer a bit, or you might think that I will. I don't intend to, but there's always a chance. So here's what the link is. Ask me any question you want, and it will be discussed on the show. Like I said, I do have one in the queue. And it is I think I know who asked that question, because they asked if I was going to cover. Because I posted it last week and they asked it in the same show. And so I think I know who asked that question, but they were not here tonight. So I'm not going to talk about it, or I'm not going to answer the question until next time. And it is not a time-sensitive question. But if you want to ask anything, you can. If it's a long-form question, I will spend as much time on it as I can. I try to do, like I said, 3 a week, but I only have one question in the queue right now. So, feel free. Join the Discord, send me news articles. I will look into them. I have done almost every news article. There's a couple I didn't do just because they were only relevant for a certain period of time, and then, they weren't relevant by the time I was doing the show. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming, watching. I will see you all next week. Till then, take care.